Hello and welcome to this locize demo. In this video, we'll present some of the locize features. We've already helped a lot of happy customers to bring their localization process to the next level. Locize tries to bridge the gap between translation and development by optimizing the translation management for everyone. Locize not only exceeds with its continuous localization capabilities, but can also be used in classic environments. It works for every type of software project: websites and web apps, mobile apps, video games, desktop applications, distributed cloud platforms, marketing or landing pages, and so on. There is also always the option to consume our API directly or to use our CLI. One of the most common project types nowadays are front-end frameworks, such as React, Angular, and Vue. So for today's demonstration, we will use a React app that was already created in a tutorial. So let's start by registering to locize. Just fill in your first name, last name and email address. Then define a username and a password. And sign up. To sign in, just enter the username and the password you've chosen before and we're ready to go. Nice, the first step is done. Now let's create our first project. The project's name, the company's name and an optional URL helps to describe the project. Then let's choose the source language, and because we are using an IT Next based code project, we choose it as an ITN format. Okay, the project is now created, but we need to define some target languages. To do so, let's check which languages are currently used in our example project. It seems beside English there are German translations. Seems like a normal IT Next project that looks like this: a language switcher, some text, and there is also an interpolated counter that counts the language switches. Okay, let's go back to locize. We can add the additional target language here, and here we could add our namespace, and here we could import our JSON file. Or we could also add new languages and namespaces on the settings page. Here in the settings page, we can also define all other settings. We'll use the CLI to upload our existing translations. Install the CLI and then we make use of the migrate command. Our existing JSON files should work without any issues. We need an API key for this task, so let's go back to locize. Here in the API tab, we can find our project ID and an existing API key. But let's create a new API key for this migration. Choose the admin role and optionally give a name. Copy that API key and let's get back to our code. Use that API key as argument for the locize migrate command. And we also need the project ID, so let's also copy and paste that one. And finally, the localhost path. That's it. Back in locize, we can see our translations have been successfully uploaded. We don't need that API key anymore, so let's remove it. With the CLI, we can synchronize the local translations with the translations in locize. There are various options and rules for this, but we will only make use of the download command now. This means the translations are only managed directly in locize, and for our code we download them. Let's create a script for that. We need again the project ID and the API key. And finally, the appropriate path argument. That should already work. Let's check. Let's change something. Save that. Execute the script. Yes, it works. But why does this work? First, let's change that back. If we go to the settings page, we can see the latest version is set to auto-publish mode. This means every time the translations get changed, they are automatically published to our CDN, and the locize CLI can download them. Until now, we did no real code change. We just uploaded the translations to locize and downloaded them again. We could keep it like that, but we want to unleash more locize features. So let's install IAT-Next locize backend and remove the download script again. We also delete the locales folder. In that example project, we already were using IAT-Next HTTP backend, so we just need to replace that with IAT-Next locize backend. Define some locize options, at least the project ID. Again, let's copy the project ID and save it to our environment file. When starting the app, we should not see any changes, but the translations are now not coming from our public locales folder, but directly from the locize CDN. Okay, so let's extend the app. Instead of having the language names be hard-coded, we can get the information from locize. In a useEffect function, we can get the available languages directly from locize. Nice, looks still the same. In locize, we now add an additional language, for example Italian, and provide some translations. Italian notes 3 different plural forms, one, many and other. We make use of the help of the machine translation suggestions in the focus view. Save and check the app. Nice! Italian is just there. Let's make use of the automatic machine translation feature. And also copy the API key. Paste the API key in the locize options and save it in our app's environment settings for the development build. There is a save missing feature in IAT-Next that is used when the app does not run in production. So what happens if we just call the t function with a non-existing key? We can also make use of the optional second argument of the t function to pass in a default value in case there is no key found. And there's also an optional third argument to pass some context information. The default value is shown in the example app. And when switching the language to German, we can already see the German translation for it, without having to go to locize. In locize, the translation is there, and the yellow icon shows us it was machine translated. Also the context information has been saved. Now, if we adapt some text and save it, our app will show those translations as usual. Welcome to continuous localization. For sure, there's also the possibility to do on-demand machine translations, also via bulk actions. We already saw there's the possibility to define some context information per segment. Here in the focus view, you can see and edit it. You can also define specific context information for a specific language. The context information also renders markdown syntax for simple styling. Additionally, there's the possibility to add screenshots. First, upload an image. You can edit the title and description for that screenshot. Then you can assign some keys. Click the Add button and select the appropriate key that is shown on the screenshot. Optionally, you can also define the position of that key. Once prepared, when opening the focus view, you can see the assigned screenshot, and if defined, also the position is highlighted. Next to the global and the focus view, there's also the in-context view. To use it, set the URL where your website runs as in-context URL. It brings your web app closer to the locize project. We need to add something for this to work. As usual, install it via npm, import it, and pass it to IAT-Next. Finally, start the app again and refresh the in-context view. Clicking on a text element immediately shows and selects the appropriate segment in locize. Let's change a key value, save it, and refresh the iframe. You can toggle the mouse selection on and off to interact with your web app. Nice, isn't it? Let's do it again, but there's more. We can bind the editor saved event And then, after clicking the Save button, there's no more need to refresh the iframe anymore. But there's also an alternative approach. If you add the query parameter in-context true to your website's URL, you'll see the in-context editor showing up as pop-up into your website. Select the key in the pop-up or on your website and edit it. There's an optional filter with which you'll be able to find and filter what keys are used or not used anymore. That filter will be available when using the locize last used script or when directly using the API. So again, let's install it via npm, import it, and pass it to IIT Next if not in production. The same locize options can be reused. Now, during development, when the app is running, after 1 to 2 minutes, it will send the appropriate information to locize. Then, in locize, the not used for filter will be available. It's common to have different deployment environments while developing software, so you can also have multiple versions in locize. Then let's set up a production version. What should be done to go to production? We suggest to not add any API key in the production build, avoid using the save missing feature, consider to enable caching. Let's start with that first. Optionally, you can also change the publish mode to private. But there's still no content in the production version. Can we do some sort of version merging? Of course! There are two options: copy from to version and overwrite version. Overwrite will create an exact translation version copy. Copy to will open the global view and show the differences to give more control what should be copied and what not. We're choosing overwrite and confirm our choice by also publishing the production version. Okay, now the production version has the same translation keys as the latest version. We'll now set the appropriate version in our app's environment settings for the corresponding build type. On dev, we are still using the latest version, and in production, the production version accordingly. Using the tags feature can be a good way to design your custom translation workflows. Tags can be defined on the settings page. There are 8 color slots you can use to define specific tags. Let's set some. Now, we should be able to use them, for example in the global view. On the right side of each translation segment there are dots with the color of the appropriate tags. Having marked segments with the tag, we can filter them. There's also the possibility to invert the tag filter and filter for segments not having a particular tag. All this is also possible on the focus view. Select a segment and mark it with the appropriate tag. You can save individual changes or all at once. Also in this view, we can filter by tags, like we've done in the global view. Let's invite our team members to the locize project. Open the Users tab on the Settings page. Here we can modify the permissions of the existing project users. We can enforce only users having multi-factor authentication enabled to have access to the project. There's also the possibility to define a custom SAML integration, user statistics, and there is the possibility to create an open invitation link. You can share that link and everyone can register and be part of the project. Or create a specific invitation, sent via email to a particular user. Instead of using review-related tags, there's also the option of specific review workflows. Okay, let's enable the review workflow. We choose Italian to be enabled for the review workflow. Let's navigate to the global view and change an Italian translation. Each time someone changes a translation, it will start a review workflow. So here we have two pending reviews. Let's decline one and accept the other one. Navigating to the focus view, we can see new entries in the history of this segment. This whole review workflow also works here in the focus view. Locize helps to keep our translations free of issues and inconsistencies by performing some checks and showing appropriate warnings. Okay, let's generate some issues to illustrate how this works. For example, a key with incorrect nesting. There is already a key with the name new added key. Now let's create a new key named new added key.wrong. Already here a warning is shown, but let's add that anyway. In the focus view for each segment, there is a special tab on the right side. Rechecking it, we now see issue 420 is detected and the key is marked to have issues. Also in the global view. In the bulk actions, there's the possibility to check the complete project. Now, let's change the translation in the source language. Showing the target languages and checking for issues, the issue 302 is detected. This means the translation may need to be checked if still correct. If all is okay, the translation can be confirmed. All these 302 issues can also be confirmed via bulk actions. There's the possibility to add a character limit per segment. This can be defined in the source language key. Switching now to a target language and entering more characters than expected will immediately generate the issue 310, saying the text is longer than the defined character limit. You can filter for segments having warnings or specific issues. You have also the possibility to generally ignore specific checks. You can do so by navigating to your project settings page in the editor tab and clicking Issues to ignore. With the Smart Translation Memory feature of Locize, you can reuse already translated text. This is best shown if using multiple Locize projects. I've created a second project and I want to use the first example project as translation memory for the second one. Now let's try how this works. We'll create a new key here with the source value learn react. Then we select the target language. Finally, let's check here in the machine translation tab. In the first section, we see Locize found the same content in the other project. We just have to click on it, that's it. For sure, this works also within the same project. On the glossary page, you can define your terminology database by adding terms manually or importing an existing file. Adding a new term is simple, just provide a description and define which terms in the different languages should be used and which not. Checking now a translation that includes one of those terms in the focus view on the right side, we can see the suggested terms to be used. Using an unwanted term will show this and suggests an appropriate alternative. Checking that segment will also show appropriate issues. You can work with translators in different ways. You can use an integrated translation service like Subtext, or a more classic way, you can export the files and send them to your translators via mail. If you like, you can also invite the translators directly to your Locize project by giving them the appropriate permissions. Or you can create a branch project based on your Locize project, which includes only the pending translation keys, and invite them there. Let's add another new language to our project. That language is now still empty, so here there is the option to create a branched project. Select the desired languages and the namespaces and click Create. A new branched project has been created. You can invite translators directly to it. We'll machine translate everything, so you see what happens when the translator finishes to translate. When ready, you can merge the translations back to your main project. You can optionally delete that branched project, since the content has been merged. Back in the main project, we can check the result. Another possibility is to use the integrated translation services. For example, Supertext, like Blend or Textmaster. You need an account on their platform, and we'll use some API credentials to be provided to locize to directly make translation orders. Go to the Ordering tab in your Settings page. Then click on Configure next to the service you like, insert the required information, and click Set. Let's add a new language. Then navigate to the Orders page and click New Order. Choose the desired languages and namespaces, check the other options, and get a quote. Check the outcome and confirm the order. If your software offers some sort of customer-specific customizations, you might be happy to use our multi-tenant functionality. You can create tenant projects based on your main project. All translations are anticipated for the tenant project and can be overridden if necessary. To set this up, navigate to the Multi-Tenant page and add a new tenant project, for example, Customer A. Let's create also another one, Customer B. Navigating to one of these projects, you can see all the translation content of the main project is already there. If we change the translation, it gets highlighted as overridden. This segment is now specific to this tenant only. Let's change also another one. Going back to the main project, we see those translations are unchanged. Let's check also the other tenant project. Changing a translation here gets also this one specific. But locize offers a lot more and is continuously extended and optimized. Details of the published translations with possibility to publish and unpublish individual languages, link to the current published translations. There are also automatically generated namespace backups. You can download or roll back. If you don't use all these features here, you can also disable individual features in your settings here. Copy the content of a language to another language or changing the source language. Individual namespaces per version. There is a dedicated health and metrics section with a focus for developers, containing useful information to optimize the technical locize integration. CDN downloads informations, different types of API requests done, and so on. Different types of two-factor authentication mechanisms, and much more. Thank you very much for your attention. We look forward to you trying out locize, and we would be delighted to welcome you as a customer.